aftermarket row unit or a seed meter. These guys don't manufacture anything in tillage, but they found a need on their large farm to get away from sweep type tools in the spring and do the vertical tillage concept. And they started buying just parts from different companies. Don Landoll had a good relationship with these. That's a chopper reel across the front. This chain in the middle came out of Germany. It's called a cripple chain. And then this is just a flat board across the rear with an accumulator on it that you can adjust the pressure to kind of spread out the residue and turn the soil up. They wanted to sell that design. Landoll bought that. We built that for a couple of years. People loved what it did until they got some acreage on it, and then it was a very, very high maintenance tool. It was doing the job they wanted, but we wanted to design something to be more reliable, have a lot less maintenance to it. The best description I have found of vertical tillage, and I think there's been a lot of concepts out there of what it is, but the best description I found is vertical tillage is a uniform, unrestricted soil profile that promotes maximum root growth. Leaves the same soil density. We came up with a tool that we tried for several months. We had a lot of people walk up and say, boy, that's a nice looking disc. But it is not a disc, and it doesn't act like a disc when you get out in the field. It does have a similar design where the framework looks somewhat like a disc, but we use a very low concavity blade. We're on a 10-degree angle, where most discs would be on a 15 to 21-degree angle. All we're trying to do is chop up that residue, move a little bit of dirt laterally, so we mix it with that residue to start the biological breakdown. If you've got combine tracks out there, we want to be able to move enough dirt to level that ground out. If you've got center pivot tracks, we want to be able to do that and do it all in one pass. Now, when we were successful with that tool and started selling a lot of other companies jumped in line. Most of these tools actually are not vertical tillage tools. They just put a different looking blade on, left it on an 18-degree angle on a disc frame. So you've got to be careful when you look at vertical tillage of what the tool actually does. You've got to be aware of blade styles. A lot of these companies thought if they put a wavy blade or a notch blade or something that would look different, it would do a better job. But what we've done with our blade, we've always came back to a smooth blade for a couple of reasons. Number one, we can put a scraper on it. These wavy blades, you can't scrape the blade when you're in mud. It'll get away from you. The other reason we did it is the cost of the blade. Our smooth blade is much less money if you ever reblade your machine. We also have the ability that we can put a cutting edge back on that blade if it ever gets dull, but with the wavy blades you can't. There's very few ways that you can get a cutting edge back on there. On the blade styles, you got to be a little bit careful. If they run too straight, your soil profile in the ground looks like that. It's choppy. Your seed, once it goes into the ground, is going to have different density of where they lay. If you got too much of an angle, you actually are not doing vertical tillage, you're scraping. So it's not a vertical concept. This just shows a picture of our blades. That blade is a 1-inch concavity. When it's in the ground, it's a 1/2 inch. When it's in the ground 2 inches deep, it's a 1/2 inch wide. And we're putting less steel in the ground than you do with a double disc planter. And I was always brought up to believe the more steel you put in the ground, the more compaction you created. These are on 7-inch spacing. It does a very nice job of chopping everything up. This is a speed tool. You're going to pull it at 8.5 miles an hour in most cases. If you've got a severe rock problem, you're going to probably want to slow down a little bit, although we use 1/4-inch blades. I mean, we're trying to stand up the rock as best we can. These are 50-pound cast spools between each blade on the front gang. Where we're going at that speed, we've got to have the weight in there, so we don't want any bounce or hop. We want a consistent depth. But we also don't want it riding up over heavy residue. I mean, we want to keep it sucked in the ground. On the rear, we use a 14-inch diameter reel. They're in a chevron design. It's like the lugs on the tire tracks. We've always got 2 rods in contact with the ground all the time, so we get a smooth roll. When you get a spiral reel, you get that thump, thump, thump action, where this is just a smooth roll like a tire on a wheel. Those 7/8" rods, what we like about them is it stuffs that residue in the ground. It doesn't shake it loose. It keeps it in contact with the dirt. We don't like double attachments where we've got harrow teeth or something like that dragging everything loose. So we like this good heavy attachment. We've got the ability that we can put a hydraulic cylinder. It's a small cylinder on the arms of that reel. If you've got a real mucky spot and don't want those reels going through it, you can lift it up on the go through that spot, and then put them back down. Now that cylinder does not adjust your down pressure on these. You'll still adjust your down pressure setting on the spring, and this cylinder basically gets them off the ground or on the ground. We, on all of our tools, we use a UHMW polymer sleeve on our rock shafts where you have no metal on metal wear. There's no lubrication of these on the rock shafts. Once you get your machines leveled, you're never going to have to worry about them coming out level because of metal wear or blade sag. We do that on all of our glue tools that we build. We use that hinge joints, totally maintenance free, and it's going to give you basically forever. As long as the machine lasts, you're never going to have to replace that.
Stan, digressing back, you got that option just came out, the hydraulic, and that can be updated on all the other previous machines we've sold, correct?
Yeah, that's right, Steve. On that hydraulic lift on the reels, anybody that already has an existing VT that replicates for your tool, it is an option if you order a new one. We're selling quite a few of them in areas where they, it's consistently wet. That's a good point. On all of our tools, we've got indicators for our fore to aft levelness. We have hydraulic cylinders on there so you can change your pitch if you have changing soil types from field to field on your dirt flow. We do a better job than any company out there as far as putting rubber on the ground. The quality, the tires, I feel personally, has disintegrated the last several years. I don't think rubber's as good as it used to be. Part of that is companies are selling so many tools anymore, I don't think they're letting the rubber cure. So we've gone to great lengths, and like our wide center disc, those are 1550 Galaxy tires on a 16.5" rim. Plenty of footprint out there in your soft conditions. And throughout our tool line, we're paying very close attention to overrate the tires that we're putting on the machines. Not overrate.
Overspec.
Underrate. But we're putting plenty of rubber on. I'm sorry, I did not explain that. Outside, we've got one of our big 5-section VTs. All of these tools in that 39, 44, and 49 foot range weigh 40,000 pounds plus. So you've got to figure out how to get enough rubber on the ground to handle that and transport it. On our transport system, we're using these 2 sets of walking duals. We've got 8 tires on the ground with this transport. And those are 235 75R 17.5 tires. They're truck tires. So our engineers pay a lot of attention to detail because we know you're going to be moving things around. Now, advantages of vertical tillage tool, and the reason I'm talking so much about them is that's kind of vertical tillage has been the buzzword the last few years. The vertical tillage market is huge. It's by far our leading product that we sell. But the advantages are you can use it both as primary tool. I don't necessarily know that in all parts of the country we need to rip our ground every year. I know a lot of cases where they rip a third of our ground each year. Use the vertical tillage in the fall and the spring the second year. Use it in the spring and the fall, or in the fall and the spring the second year, and then come back in and rip it the third year. It all depends on your soil types. It cuts, levels, incorporates in one pass. It does an awesome job of preparing the seed bed. The rim is about 1 inch thick. That's where your loose dirt is. The dirt coming off this tool is much more mellow than it is behind the disc gang, where the disc gang will bring up slabs or chunks when it's wet. This is mellow dirt behind this tool. You can run it shallow. You never have a density change once you plant your seed at the bottom of that loose dirt. When you're running an inch deep in the spring. So your root growth is going to be the same. It's a high-speed tool. You can cover a lot of acres in a day. Now this is just an example of a cornfield. This is the fall of the year. This is pretty doggone good corn. There's a lot of residue out there. And this is what it looks like after one pass in the fall. And we like the way that this residue is chopped it up. Obviously you're going to have some leaves move out there in these cornfields, but we're not going to have any stalks moving around. can't keep the clicker slow enough. As this tool goes by in this, the first thing I want you to look at is the blades and see how shallow we're running this. This is the fall of the year. This is about 230 bushel corn. We're running 2 inches deep. And after it gets by, watch the dirt flow coming off of these gangs. Now, if that was a disc, it would be rolling the dirt out. This machine doesn't do that. We're flushing the dirt is the best way I know how to describe it. We flush the dirt. We're able to level by doing that.
A lot of guys around here are going on a diagonal. They go diagonal down there in Kansas.
Yeah, we do. You know, what we talk about a lot of times is a 15-degree angle. Now, I've been on a lot of farms. Not all guys are looking for the same thing out there. Some guys want to take that rip ball out of the ground in corn. Some want to leave it in the ground. They feel like, you know, taking the rip ball out of the ground, when they're coming through with the planter, they have more chance of bouncing and hopping. But an angle is what we prefer. There's certain cases, like a ridge till or something like that, and they're leveling those ridges out, they go straight down the road. But this is what we like after one pass. This operation is going to be a fall pass, and then he'll come back in with that same tool, probably a week prior to planting or right ahead of the planter, and it makes a very, very nice seed bed. This is another example of what the tool will do. You can see by the date code, this is getting in late May. It's been wet. They haven't been able to get the crop in. This would be a mess to try to plant in, but it's shored that up, and that's going to make a very nice planting surface in one pass with that tool. Now, this might be a little bit hard to see, but if you can see right here, there's a line. And when we talk about weed control, on this side, we work with our VT Plus tool. On this side, we use to look at the competitors' straight blade, wavy blade type tool, where they have no dirt movement. They're not killing any weeds. You can see a lot more weed competition out there. I strongly think it probably saved one spraying operation. If you get out there and look straight down, and it's kind of hard to see here, we've got a lot more uniform growth. We've got more plants sprouted because we've got, you know, we've got them the same soil density, we've got them the same depth. Some of these would have fallen like where we showed how that gives that uneven profile when you have a straight blade. Some of those fell in the deep part, some are on the peak. They don't sprout at the same time. This is a field where I want to show you what it looks like. They culver chiseled this in the fall. You can see it's wet. There's water standing up here. Now that's nice. I don't know whatever the tool you can take in there. A disc would slab that. A cultivator would have gone back to what we talked about, kind of smearing the ground. Because you'd have had to run 2 or 3 inches deep to get that dirt flow and even that out behind the cultivator shank.
How deep do you run that in the spring?
What's that?
How deep do you run that in the spring?
I run at the same depth I run the plant. If you're going to plant the corn an inch deep, I'd run the tool an inch deep, because what I want to do is lay it below that loose dirt, right on that firm soil below. In the fall, I'd probably run it 2.5 inches deep, just to get more dirt picked up, you know, to mix more dirt with that residue to start the decay process.
Do you worry about it air pitting?
What was that?
Do you worry about it air pitting when the corn stalks right at the same depth as the seed?
No, we have not had that issue or had that problem. You know, if we do a fall tillage operation, quite honestly, you'll be surprised how much this decays that matter. I mean, we don't have stems 4 inches long that are left. You know, in the springtime, if we've done a good fall tillage operation or run this tool, you know, in the fall, you know, if that ground temperature is above 50 degrees, that stuff you can just break up in your hand. So we haven't seen that. We haven't had anybody talk about that. This is just a picture. He decided he didn't have a good enough stand of corn for some reason. It looks pretty good to me, but I just wanted to show you what it does in plain ground. That is an awesome looking seed bed. You can see here how shallow we're running that blade. You can see once again how that dirt flow is coming off of there. He probably traveled somewhere in range of 8 miles an hour. I don't know for sure, but I don't think you can go out in your garden with hand tools and make ground in any nice seed bed. Now we've all had this happen. We mudded out a crop. We've got a mess in the field. What are you going to do with that? Well, Once again, it goes back, the only tool you can take out there is a disc probably, and it gets blamed for compaction. So what we can do with a tool like that, this is one pass with the VT tool over that same spot. You can see how it leveled out that combine track. Now that's not a seed bed, but it got air to it. It's going to let it dry out. You can come back a few days later, hit it again, and correct it so you've got something to plant in. I showed this picture. You can see we were running in terrible conditions. There's mud up here on the fenders of the tractor, all over the machine. But once again, look how clean these gangs are running. You know, we've got a scraper on that blade. I strongly believe that if you're running one of the wavy blades that does not have a scraper, it's going to ball up in there. We've seen it happen. We've prepared our seed bed. Now we can go back in and plant our seed with, you know, confidence that we've got a good uniform seed bed there. Our crops can emerge the way we like it, we're an even stand. We do build grain drills. I'm not going to talk much about them tonight, but if you're over in the grain drill market, we've got an excellent drill where we use pneumatic down pressure. The down pressure stays even on all row units, whether they're flexed down or flexed up, where springs get tight. As you pull up on the opening or bury your seed, and as they droop down in the ditch or something like that, you lose your down pressure and leave your seed on top of the ground. I just got a couple things I'm going to show you here now before we close, but this is down in Oklahoma what they do. This is center pivot irrigation on wheat. They continuous crop. They cut that with a stripper head. They go through right behind the combine, lay that down to get the volunteer and the cheat and the weeds started. If it doesn't rain, they turn the pivot on, run it around. When that growth comes up, they spray it. And then right ahead of the grain drill, they hit that again with the vertical tillage tool. And it does a nice job. I encourage you guys, with whatever tool you buy, to do your own testing. This is on our farm back home. What we've done here, this is no-till wheat. The picture's not quite right because we double drilled here. This is on the other side of this road where we ran DT one time, and the stands in those rows are very, very similar. This is a little distorted here because we drilled across here and then we're doing our angles. But here's the big thing. The common practice down in our country, if you no-till wheat on wheat, we're going to use 100 pounds of nitrogen and 120 pounds of seed. We're in our second year of testing this, but we've cut back where we use 75 pounds of nitrogen and 75 pounds of seed, and last year there was less than 1 bushel difference. Now last year wasn't our greatest crop year, but everything was relative in the way we did it. So we like doing that. We do our own experiments. I think you guys ought to try test fields, little test strips, so you know what's working for you. Quick picture, this is what we do with our stubble back home. We're trying to conserve all the moisture we can. We've got about a 20-inch rainfall where you guys are a lot higher than that. Sometimes you're trying to dry things out, we're trying to save it. So we do that. This was taken one Saturday. This picture was taken the next Saturday. You can see what we fight is wind. We've got to leave growth out there so that we can catch it. What we'll do now is go into that field, hit it with the VT right ahead of the planter. We'll put maize or milo in this field. We don't do a lot of corn. We do some, but not a lot. But the big thing to think about, guys, in closing is tillage isn't an enemy of farming. We want to do as little tillage as we can, but we still want to get a proper seed bed built. At Landoll, we try to fine-tune our tools to fit everybody's operation. So if you see anything here, if you're fighting a compaction problem like we're talking about, the vertical tillage tool is the only tool I've ever been around for as long as I've done this. I've done this a long time. That we sell from New York to California, from Ontario to Texas. We sell in every state in the nation.